Third reading, amendment number 5 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk, read in the amendment.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 5, corrected copy, section 24.
Senator Steinmetz,
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move third reading amendment number 5 to Senate File 1 and ask for the body's favorable consideration. Fellow senators, I just sent you a list of folks who receive these kinds of money from our good institution here in section 24. And there is one part that's a little out of place. And so we're just seeking to revise that and just say that grants and aid payments to any news service will not be in a general fund appropriation. This restriction shall not apply to advertising and public notice placed or services contracted with any news or public broadcasting service. And so that is the amendment, and I would stand for any questions.
questions, considerations? Senator Case?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering if this might cover a large statewide television agency that's publicly funded for the most part and has a fund drive. They're not primarily a news service as I understand it, but they do receive grants for particular programs that they produce, some very excellent programs, I might add. They do provide a news feed of national news from the National Public Broadcasting Service, Mr. President, and they also do news features back before the COVID world, and I think they're still doing some involving the legislature. So I believe it might say something like, it might have the word Outlook in the title, if I remember right. Are these news feeds? Is this a news service? I need to know.
Further discussion or questions? Senator Scott?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding it does not include that which is part of the Community College Commission. It's a different budget, different set of fact circumstances. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, Article 16, Section 6. Neither the state nor any county, city, township, town, school district, or any other political subdivision shall, item 1, loan or give its credit or make donations to or in aid of any individual, association, corporation, except for the necessary support of the poor. Mr. Chairman, this is an amendment to bring a reminder to one of our state agencies that this provision of the Constitution applies to them, because a news organization is not necessary support of the poor. Mr. President, I hope we adopt this amendment.
Senator Landon?
Mr. President, thank you. And I really do appreciate the senator. We worked on this. I think we improved the language, but it was brought to my attention exactly what my desk mate just mentioned as well. And that is that we've got a statewide television service that this particular agency utilizes and helps to produce some of those programs that honestly are just outstanding. I wasn't aware of that, or we certainly could have worked a little harder on this language. My concern was that we just simply did not prohibit an agency from doing the job of getting the word out there, the advertising, the public relations, the whatever, and I think we covered that. The problem that I have is this other piece that is it covered under a public notice placed or services contracted with, if an agency were to help that statewide television network to produce a piece, would that be considered services contracted with? I just don't want to hamstring our ability to put that kind of programming together and to support it when they do want to do a piece on state parks or cultural resources. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hicks? Oh, sorry, Chairman Perkins.
So I look a lot like the vice president,
I
so
was just thinking.
I'm
that.
not insulted. He may be insulted, but I'm not.
You
The,
you understand my confusion then, okay?
Mr. President, and direct answer to the question, I do believe that in the event that there is a production of a show, regardless of, even if it was out through this agency, there's always a contract that is involved in putting that together. There's a contract puts together, there's a publication, there's participation, and there's a contract regarding that production. And so I believe strongly that you just don't enter into those shows and doing those types of production capabilities without a contract. They, both for what it is that's to be done and then the deliverable that's supposed to come out of the production, as well as it also sets in stone the required commitments financially for that to happen. So so that's not a grant and aid, that's a contract service, and the language in the last sentence of the amendment, I believe, exempts that so that that would still be able to be done. And what you would find is, particularly in the cultural resources portion of this agency, they might have a joint participation with the certain broadcasting agency that we're talking about in producing some show. Might be about women's suffrage. It might be about one of our national parks. It might be about any type of thing. And so as they produce that, there's a deliverable that comes out of that. There's a product that comes out of that. It's exchange for value, that there's a contract that governs that.
Question being called. Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Roll call. Third reading amendment number 5. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner?
Senator Boner,
He went to lunch it down there.
excused
Bouchard?
for the moment.
Hey,
Senator
Tara,
Bouchard?
did you ever watch any down?
Aye. Case? Aye.
Is the
Cooper?
house behind the
Aye.
one
Driscoll?
thing is the down there?
Aye.
Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Baru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. James? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins?
Aye.
Aye. Rothbus? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. Boner? Excuse, Mr. President. Excuse.
Excused.
President Dockstader?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote? Rothfuss, aye to no. Closing vote? Closing vote closed. Amendment number 5. 28 aye, 1 no, 1 excused.
Third reading amendment number 5 to Senate File 1 has passed. Third reading amendment number 15 to Senate File 1, reading clerk reading the amendment.
Senate File 1, third reading amendments number 15, section 48.
Senator Beitman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Caught me off guard. I move third reading amendment number 15 to Senate File number 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, what the intent of this amendment is to do is to put back the money into the Department of Health, Aging Division for the seniors. That's the $1.374 million that was cut. That'll get them through the current biennium. And to find that money, I went and found another trust fund earmark with matching funds. You'll see on 33, page 33 of the bill, there was an earmark number 3 that set aside $3 million for basically deer bridges and deer fences. And I think this is this is one of those other choices we have to make, unfortunately, when we get down to these types of budget cuts and budget decisions, and we have to set our priorities accordingly. And it just gives us that choice. If we want to put some money back into to help our seniors, we need to take it out of areas that may not be as important. So on and for the amendment, I ask for your aye vote. Thank you, sir.
Further discussion on the amendment? Questions on the amendment? Senator Ellis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and against the amendment, I appreciate the bringer's intent. But when we look at the purpose of having some of these wildlife crossings, it isn't just to protect wildlife. If anyone's ever been involved in a collision with these animals, we experience loss of life, not only for the animal, but for individuals, which drives up significant health insurance costs and has other devastating effects. So at this time, I think we should continue to invest in making sure that the funds are available for through the Wildlife Natural Resource Trust account, and would urge you to defeat this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Salazar, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, as someone who actually whose car was vaporized by hitting a deer in 2018, luckily my wife and I somehow miraculously walked away without a scratch. I understand how important these are, but when I consider the devastation that's going to happen to our seniors, it's worth using these funds for them. So on in support of the amendment.
Senator Case?
Mr. President, speaking against the amendment, Wyoming is so fortunate with these huge open spaces and the fact that we have some of the largest and longest wildlife migration corridors in North America. We're just beginning to find out what that means and the implications for that species and other species. But we also find that the worst parts and the bottlenecks that exist where they cross highways, some up in your neck of the woods, the one out of Dubois is a mess. Over on the Pinedale side, there are really serious problems, and we need to keep working on it and maybe try to open up I-80 more across the corridor. So I don't want to take any funds from these efforts. This is something for future generations. And if you stop one of these migrations that's been rooted since the ice ages in these animals, if it falls apart and they forget about it or unlearn it or get discouraged from using it, we've really lost something. We don't even understand what it was. So against the amendment.
Senator Hicks?
Mr. President, on and against the amendment. First, I believe most of these monies have already been obligated. It's easy to go in and look at last year's budget and say, I'm going to just take money out of there. But what if those monies have already been spent? I'm curious as if the bringer of the amendment actually knows what the balance in the account was, how much of that money's already been obligated. So that's one issue. Do we know what that is? Because I know that there's a significant portion of this money has already been let through contracts and obligated for projects. So that's one issue with this amendment. The second issue that we're dealing with, it's a public safety issue. Not only is it just a public safety, it's a private property, or the destruction of private property associated with these collisions is significant. So we deal with that issue. And then the other thing, Mr. Chairman, is so where do these funds go? Anybody know when we dole these out? They go out to contractors in your local communities. These are jobs. Opportunity to go out, build fence, wildlife crossings. So not only are you reducing public safety, you're taking jobs out of your community. This is not the way to do this. On and against the amendment, Mr. President.
Further discussion on the amendment, Senator Kinsky?
Mr. President, we're debating this particular, getting money into this particular program now and an amendment after this. And I know I'm going to sound like a stuck record, but folks, let's do remember there remains $91 million devoted to helping indigent seniors stay out of nursing homes. There's still a substantial amount of money there. This is a reduction that was recommended by the chief executive. I think it's important that we back that budget. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion? Back to the sponsor, Senator Byman.
Thank you. Good debate. Answered some questions. I did reach out to LSO about that number, and I recall seeing that there was enough funds available in that account to do this. Second issue, if you look on the amendment, let's see, down to page, or line 20 on the amendment, this is only for this biennium. And your Deer Bridges will continue to get funded next biennium and on into the future. This is just a temporary fix for a temporary shortfall that we're dealing with. We'll come back next budget, we'll deal with this again. So it's just kind of a bridge, so to speak, to the next biennium. And yeah, it's really it's a decision we have to make. It's a tough choice. These are tough times, and I call for the ayes. Thank you, sir.
Question being called. Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Third reading amendment number 15, roll call. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? No. Whitman? Aye. Boner?
Boner is excused.
Excused. Bouchard? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? No. Driscoll? No. Ellis? No. French? No. Murphy? Aye. Baru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. James? Aye. Kinsky? No. Cole? No. Cost? No. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? No. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? No. Scott? No. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? No. President Dockstader? Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Third reading amendment number 15, 11 aye, 18 no, 1 excused.
Third reading amendment number 15 to Senate File 1 has failed. Next up, third reading amendment number 6 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk, read in the amendment.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 6, section 48.
Senator Furphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move third reading number 6 to Senate File 1 and ask for your favorable consideration.
Want to explain?
Mr. President, I know this is a lot of money, but I've been contacted by several people who have children or adults with developmental disabilities. And I'll give you this one example that I just received again. And it says, as you are aware, my 48-year-old son is severely impacted and on around-the-clock care and fully dependent on Medicaid waivers for his funding. So we have cut that program. I received a second contact by a single mother who has a child in very similar circumstances. She's saying, if you cut this funding, my son is going to have to move home. She said, I'm a single mom. There's no way that I can take care of him because he's totally disabled. And I've received a third contact, similar situation. So, Mr. President, once again, I know it's a lot of money, but we need to take care of these people and we've cut their funding. So this funding is coming out of the general fund, but it's also matched by federal funds. And so I'll stop there and try to answer any questions, but these people really need this funding, Mr. President.
Further discussion or questions? Senator Kinsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mark Twain, somehow during his lifetime, an obituary was run in error, announcing his death. And he wrote to the newspapers with that famous quote, "Rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated." This program is not dead. It has $219 million in funding. That is one heck of a lot of money that remains for the DD waiver. Yesterday, or the day before, we carved $6.5 million out of UW's budget and put it towards this program, which wiped out all of the governor's step 2 reductions and then put some more money back. This amendment would put still more money on back of that, further reducing, leaving just the smallest reduction out of the governor's, out of the chief executive's budget. I would urge the defeat of this amendment. The program remains extraordinarily well funded, and we have already reversed better than 3/4 of the chief executive's reduction to the program. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion? Further discussion. Coming back to you, Senator Furphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, the estimate to these people are still, yes, they're going to be funded, but it's still almost a 35% cut is what the calculations show. So, yeah, I encourage you to put this money back in to help these most vulnerable individuals in our state. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ready for the question? Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Third reading amendment number 6, roll call. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? No. Boner, excused. Bouchard? No. Case? No. Cooper? No. Driscoll? No. Ellis? No. French? No. Furphy? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. James? No. Kinsky? No. Cole? No. Cost? No. Landon? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? No. Pappas? No. Perkins? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? No. Wasberger? Aye. President Dockstader? No. Closing vote? Closing. Vote closed. Amendment number 6, 7 aye, 22 no, 1 excused.
Third reading amendment number 6 to Senate File 1 has failed. Next amendment for our consideration. Third reading amendment number 7 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk, reading the amendment, please.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 7, section 48.
Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. I would move third reading amendment number 7 to Senate File 1 and ask for your consideration. Fellow senators, this does circle back. Before I get started, I want to send a salute to my friends at the front of the room. 2 amendments ago, we had a little bit of debate on an effort that they made in this same area. And just wanted to say that I appreciate where their heart is. I ask you to circle back just one more time and take a look at this one. I can remember in December, folks having a visit with our senior senator director and was so incredibly impressed with this particular program and what it does for our communities and what it does for us. So I kind of vowed right then that I would try to do what I could. What we have done with the recommendation on the part of the Appropriations Committee is we've cut 3/4 of the funding out of that. What this amendment does is put enough back in there, which would get it up to halfway, and it gains us 1 year. It gains your communities 1 year to try to coddle together services and programs and people who might be able to prop these folks back up. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all the talking points that I gave you. I hope you remember who we're talking about here. This is those folks that are right above the Medicare line, right above. They just have barely enough assets that they don't qualify. This literally keeps them alive. And the workers, by the way, are such an impressive, this is a jobs bill too, speaking of jobs that it creates and whatever. These folks are remarkable people, Mr. President, assisting the least among us. And appreciate your consideration on the amendment. Thank you.
Discussion, Senator Kinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against the amendment. This will be the third time that hopefully we will vote no on the very same question. The difference now is instead of it coming out of general fund or instead of it coming out of SIPA, now it is coming out of our savings, which are rapidly dwindling. The 1 year transition asked for by the bringer of the amendment has already been had in the step 2 reductions that the governor made, the chief executive made, with instructions that it's going away, wind the program down. So that 1 year transition has already been had. This would be another 1 year transition. And again, I'd emphasize the long-term care waiver, which keeps the medically indigent out of nursing homes, is a $91 million program with $48 million of general fund. And what we're trying to do is take what we can, save it, and preserve the programs for the most desperately poor of the poor under that long-term care waiver. I'd urge a no vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, speaking on and for this amendment. Yes, there's that big appropriation there, but it can't be used for the kind of things that this one is being used for because of the restrictions in the federal Medicaid program, which are not, Mr. President, fully rational. They do allow us to do a lot of good with that large appropriation, keep the cost of nursing homes down. But being the federal government, they didn't quite get it right. And this state funds only program that we're talking about here provides a very useful supplement that will save us money by keeping a lot of people out of the nursing homes and give them a much better quality of life. So it's a good deal both ways around. You can't compare this to the large program. They do different things. So, Mr. President, for those reasons, I urge adoption of this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to stand in support of the good senator from Bates Creek, and forgive me for piling on here. I mean, there's a reason why this program keeps appearing, and I think it's as a result of the importance to the constituents of the state. But I do think that distinction is important that the good senator from Bates Creek just made. This program is actually eliminated. So regardless of that $219 million for those for the folks that need to be hospitalized and Medicaid eligible, that money is there for them, but it's not for these seniors. This program is eliminated. And so that's the difference, and that's what's really important about this piece.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Back to you, Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I think part of the difficulty for me as well is just that I realize that we've got to draw this thing back. We've got a budget that we need to take care of. This is a group that has no advocacy much. They don't have the ability to collectively come down here and advocate for their own well-being or for the opportunity to try to stay in their homes. Yeah, this does come out of our savings. And if we don't have a little bit of savings for something like this, I just ask you, you know, what are we holding on to the savings for? This is the least among us, folks, and this will at least give our communities a little bit of time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Calling for the question, Chief Clerk, take the roll.
Third reading amendment number 7, roll call. Anderson.
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman. Aye. Boner excused. Bouchard. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. No. Ellis. Aye. French. No. Murphy. Aye. Garou. No. Hicks. No. Hutchings. Aye. James. Aye. Kinsky. No. Cole. No. Cost. Aye. Landon.
Aye.
Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott.
Aye.
Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. No. Rothus. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. No. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstader. No. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Third reading amendment number 7, 20 aye, 9 no, 1 excused.
Third reading amendment number 7 to Senate File 1 has passed the Senate. Next amendment for our consideration, third reading amendment number 8 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk, read in the amendment.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 8, section 48.
Senator Beitman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move third reading amendment number 8 to Senate File 1. Ask for your favorable consideration. Folks, this is just a technical correction. My intention was not to make this an ongoing appropriation, only to affect this fiscal year. So if you see on the amendment, all we're doing is inserting the word "not," and that'll make sure that these appropriations are not included in next year's budget and ongoing budgets. And I ask for your favorable vote. Thank you.
Question being called. This is a voice. Oh, Senator Perkins.
Mr. President, on and for this amendment, this makes what I thought was a mistake by our body yesterday a little bit less worse. And so I think you want to do that. And just as a matter of information, the budget only lasts to the end of the biennium anyway. So I'm not even sure why we need to take a correction, because it would expire and would not be binding going forward anyway. But
Well,
just in case.
we got it in
wrong with having
process
a
now,
belt
so-
and suspenders.
Senator Landon.
Mr. President, being the journalist among us, is there a phrase "less worse"? I've just never heard that.
Yeah, well. Chairman just made it. Okay. It's a voice vote, folks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those nay. Motion is passed. Next amendment for our consideration, third reading amendment number 9 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk, read in the amendment.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 9, section 67.
This is the one.
Senator Cost.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, sorry. I move third reading amendment 9 to Senate File 1. Ask for your favorable vote. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last few moves, we've hit the University of Wyoming pretty hard. 50 million was taken out originally, and then another 16 million was taken out. That's just in this last instant. Last year, we hit them hard. we need our institution to continue to work with our students. This goes back into the block grant. It can assist in our agricultural department as well as some others so that we don't have to worry about any losses. They're going to move it around in their block grant where they wish. It's just to put back in what we took out yesterday. It's the total of $6,549,880. I would ask you for your favorable vote on this amendment.
Discussion on the amendment? Discussion on the amendment. Question being called. We'll give her just a moment here. Question being called. Third reading amendment number 9 to Senate File 1. Roll call.
Roll call on amendment number 9. Anderson.
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman.
No.
No. Boner, excuse. Bouchard. No. Case. No. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. No. French. No. Murphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. No. Hutchings. No. James. No. Kinsky. No. Cole. No. Cost.
Aye.
Aye. Landon. Aye. McEwen. No. Nethercott. No. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Aye. Rothbus. Aye. Salazar. No. Schuler. Aye. Scott. No. Steinmetz. No. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstader. No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Amendment number 9, 13 aye, 16 no, 1 excused.
Could you repeat that, please?
13 aye, 16 no, 1 excused.
Senate, third reading amendment number 9 to Senate File 1 has failed. Next amendment for our consideration. Third reading amendment number 10 to Senate File 1.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 10, section 67.
Senator Anderson on the remote.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I move third reading amendment number 10 to Senate File 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. One of the powers and the strengths that we have a very strong engineering group in the School of Energy Resources that can get on some of these topics that we're having. And I'll get my picture up here. Sorry. There we go. And get ahead of some of these topics that are coming up. One of those topics that's coming up is hydrogen, and hydrogen cells, fuel cells, are making headway all over the world in the automotive industry and in power and all kinds of places because of the environmental issues that they overcome. The only thing that comes out of a fuel cell is water. So that fuel cell can power automobiles and all kinds of things. So we're asking for $1 million for the School of Energy Resource to foster research and a center of excellence in the field of hydrogen production, transportation, and storage, and to participate in related grant programs, of which we know there are a multitude of them coming from the federal government. So we want to get ahead of this program and get the hydrogen used for all these products, hydrogen made possibly from our own natural gas. Thank you, Mr. President.
Questions for the sponsors. Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and against the amendment. What this does is it takes $1 million out of the LSRA and allocates it to the School of Energy Resources. Mr. Chairman, a little background on some of this. The School of Energy Resources was a creature of the legislature that was done to make sure that certain energy issues and certain energy research was continued to be conducted, of which the state had particular interest. And so it's funded a little bit separately even though it's at and a part of the University of Wyoming, it's funded separately, and its funds are not usually not commingled with to any greater extent, but to much lesser extent with other funds of the university. After some less than a 10% reduction to some 600 series grants and aid to others, there is still over $25 million that's appropriated in this budget of School of Energy Resources. School of Energy Resources, I would hope, if hydrogen is the future, and one of the purposes of this is to look at these things and help Wyoming adjust, both to maintain and adjust and seize out new opportunities and existing opportunities in the field of energy research, I would hope that they would go back and reprioritize. And if this is a priority, that they would begin to move in that direction and do that. Ultimately, we expect them, and I would hope that they would be responsive, and that they would be responsive to this regardless of whether we had this amendment, and certainly not because we paid them $1 million to do it. So I ask you to vote no.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Back to Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. That is a good discussion on the school energy resources, which the legislature set up, and we continue to run it with the board, the Energy Resource Council board, not the trustees. So we do have a lot of other issues with energy products in the state that we're trying to work with, including oil, gas, coal, now uranium, and one other product up there in Sundance that we're working on. So we're stretched a little thin with CCUS and working with the ITC department. So that's why they're coming back with this consideration for $1 million that would be put to hydrogen, and obviously the full support of the legislature if we pass this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Ready for the question? Question is on Senate file or third reading amendment number 10 to Senate File 1. Chief Clerk, take the roll.
Amendment number 10, roll call. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? No. Whitman?
No.
No. Owner excused. Bouchard? No. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? No. Ellis? No. French? No. Murphy? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. James? No. Kinsky? No. Cole? No. Cost? No. Landon? Aye. McCune? No. Nethercott? No. Pappas? No. Perkins? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. No. Schuler? No. Scott? No. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader? No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Amendment number 10, 6 aye, 23 no, 1 excused.
Third reading amendment number 10 to Senate File 1 has failed the Senate. Third reading amendment number 11 is Senate File 1. Reading clerk, read in the amendment.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 11, Section 205.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, move adoption of this amendment. Mr. President, let me explain what the amendment does. Mr. President, in the budget before us, the largest item in the budget is mentioned almost in passing. It is there. You'll see it's being amended on line 5 of the amendment, where we're decreasing the amount being spent out of the school foundation program. But we don't generally deal with the finances, in spite of the fact it's the largest item in our budget, in the budget bill. And Mr. President, it's time we did that. What this amendment does is it takes the teacher increase that was in the recalibration bill, puts it in here. It takes a bunch of the reductions. It puts in the protections of doing the funding for the teachers and the school systems in a categorical grant that can only be spent for teachers, and that's very important. It reduces the class sizes as it did yesterday in the other bill. Same reductions. That's the big money item. It puts a cap on school transportation expenses, as we did before. It provides that we will not have the Go students that the 3-year rolling average provides. It provides we'll go on a particular prior pre-COVID year. That's a significant savings. It does provide that we will go on insurance, it's another big money item, to just what was actually being used, or that had people who were eligible for it that were taking it up. So it does all those changes. The net effect, when you look at what the model guarantees, which is the way we're looking at things otherwise, is 120.5 million decrease savings. So this is a big savings item, but one that preserves the features that I think will improve the performance of our school system. And those are big items. They deserve to be dealt with in the budget with everything else, because the budget is where we say, look, this is how we're gonna fund the state and it works for the next year. And Mr. Chairman, I think it's very important, because I think with the mechanics of how this legislature works, this is our best chance to actually get those changes, both the reductions and the increases that are proposed here, and get them actually done. So I would urge adoption of this amendment. Otherwise, I am afraid, deeply afraid, it's not certain, but I'm deeply afraid that we will come out of here having decimated the rest of state government and not touched the largest program that the state government has, where there are known to be excesses. And I don't think that's reasonable. So this is our best chance to get it done. I urge an aye vote on the amendment.
Discussion on the amendment. Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against the amendment. I think that we all know, we've had a significant debate about this yesterday. We all know that this is a looming problem. The reason I suggest that we don't do this is we have other vehicles to do this. And ultimately, by adopting this amendment, I think we force ourselves into a brinksmanship on a budget that essentially was attempts to solve all of our problems at once. I think that strategy is likely to be unsuccessful, but what I do know is that the budget we have has made significant cuts. It's corrected at least the general side of the budget going forward. And for me, I think in that as we look at that and we consider that, I think it's very important that when we finish this legislature and session and we go home, that we do so with to be able to know that the arguments we've had about social services, those tough discussions that we've had, that we go home and have those, we can go home and we can talk about the fact we've deliberated on those things and we did those things deliberately, and then we haven't had all for naught because we couldn't get this budget delivered. This goes a long way to correcting a lot of our problems. My years in the legislature have shown me that oftentimes you can't get everything you want, but when you can continue to advance what you need to get done, you continue to get closer to that, If you can't get all the way, then you get what the best that you can get. It's a deliberative process. And we don't always get our way. I don't know very many relationships where you do get your way. I don't know how I don't know how your marriage is, Mr. President, but I don't always get my way at my house. In fact, sometimes I don't get my way at all. But that's the nature of these relationships. And again, I'm concerned that this creates a brinksmanship situation that I think we should avert. And so for those reasons, I ask you to vote no, but continue to explore this problem, continue to advance and champion school finance reform, but to do so in a different vehicle. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion? Further discussion, go back. Oh, wait, Senator Scott, let's go to Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, on and against the amendment. And my concerns is if I thought this would solve the problem and get us to where we need to be, I'd certainly be supportive of it. My concern is even if we adopted this, we were able to prevail upon our colleagues to adopt it. If you look at it, it says for the school year 2021. And the way I read the provisions in this bill, when you go all the way through this, we would have to come back and redo all of these cuts all over again, starting in the next biennium. And so I'm a little concerned the way it's worded. It says for school year 2021, all the way through that we make these reductions. But what it doesn't say is they will be implemented continuously through, because this is a budget. It's only good for the rest of this biennium. So maybe we can have some discussion on that, but it looks to me like even if we did this, we're going to come back and fight this fight all over again on this very amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
Okay, further discussion. We'll now go back to sponsor. Wait a minute, Senator Wasserberger.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against the amendment. But I would like to talk about the term brinkmanship. And brinkmanship is a term that comes to us from the politics of the 1950s, where the two largest countries in the world developed atomic weapons, and the idea of massive retaliation. And massive retaliation was that both countries would bomb each other into oblivion with atomic bombs. It was called brinkmanship. And we are doing something that fills me with a huge concern. We are playing brinkmanship with our K-12 system. And let me tell you how that played out in Kansas, just not that long ago, within the last 10 years. They had a governor elected, and he promised significant property tax cuts, and those tax cuts were passed. And as this K-12 system is largely based on property taxes, the K-12 system ran out of money, and they closed all their schools for 6 months. And that actually happened in the last 10 years. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. We're going to run the system out of money, and then we can't pay our teachers. We can't have our schools. Kids lose their school year, much like they lost their school year last year, where they didn't get to play soccer, they didn't get to go to state track, those types of things. And so I'd like to warn this floor, let's not play brinkmanship with K-12.
Senator Beitman.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for the amendment. I think if you want to talk about brinksmanship, I think you need to look at the other end of the hall, because that's what's going on. And if we don't adopt this, we're talking about surrender. Us on the Education Committee have worked tirelessly to solve the K through 12 problem. And we're getting hung out to dry. This is a big deal. This is not brinksmanship on our part. This is doing what's right. And I'm here to do what's right and do what's right for the state as a whole and setting us up for the future. We need to get this done. Vote aye.
Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a member of the Senate Education Committee, I would just want to echo my colleague to the right. We've been willing to do the hard work and the necessary cuts that the state needs. And this amendment allows all of you to share with us in that pain. And I ask that you adopt this. Thank you.
Further discussion before we go back to the sponsor, Senator Scott. Oops, Senator Kinsky, sorry, it's Senator Scott. Let's gather them all up. We're going to give Senator Scott his exercise today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Folks, I would urge that we back our Appropriations Committee chair. You know, in the deliberations, there were a lot of deliberations about whether or not we should bring this forward in the context of the budget bill. And ultimately, we opted not to because there are other better vehicles for it. And I respect his judgment. And we thought long and hard about it, and we've got many hours in terms of getting the budget to this point. And the budget process has worked better than I've seen it work in the 5 years that I've been here. There's still a lot of conflict, but we don't have the acrimony. And we will still have some hard-fought negotiations, but we've seen a sobriety in our counterparts that I've not seen since I've been here. There's not been the, layering in of spending and so forth. And I think you can trust that your Appropriations Committee chair and your leadership are going to continue to work hard to get the school finance. I would just urge you not to do it in the context of this budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President.
For discussion before we go back to the sponsor. Senator Scott, it's all yours.
Mr. Chairman, let me respond to a couple of the things. First, the brinksmanship discussion. This is not an apocalyptic change. Let's put this in perspective. This is a reduction in our spending in education of, if my quick math is right, between 6.5% and 7%. That's not the end of the world. I think it will actually improve our education, given some of the excesses that we're trying to get rid of. Second, the discussion on the 1 year, that is a characteristic of the budget. It does mean we will come back and deal with the issues next year. I think if we do it once in the budget, we'll find we have a much better time next year of getting a reasonable result. But it does have to be 1 year in the budget. But by saving 1 year, Mr. Chairman, we're putting ourselves in much better position next year. Because if we don't save 1 year, then next year's reductions are going to have to be ones that will actually hurt in the classroom, because we'll be a year closer to running out of money. So we need to do this. The issue of other vehicles. Mr. President, the question there, we have tried the other vehicles for, is it 4 years or 6 years now? At least 4. I can remember time after time again, we've just got to get something done, and we can't get it done. Mr. President, I do pledge to you, if we don't get this done here, I will do my best. And if we do get it done here, I'll do my best too, to get the other vehicles to work. And the provision in the amendment is that they would take precedent. But I do not have confidence at all in the outcome. Mr. President, this should not come down to a matter of you support your Appropriations Committee or you support your Education Committee. That's getting too much into personalities. Mr. President, this comes down to a matter of doing what's right for our citizens who don't want to be taxed to death, for our citizens who want their kids well educated, for the future of the state and amenting the catastrophe that will happen if we keep kicking this can down the road. Mr. President, I urge adoption of the amendment.
Question, reading clerk will please call the roll on third reading amendment number 11 to Senate File 1.
Amendment number 11, roll call. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? No. Whitman? Aye. Boner excused. Bouchard? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? No. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? No. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. James? Aye. Kinsky? No. Cole?
No.
No. Cost? No. Landon? No. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? No. Pappas? No. Perkins? No. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? No. Scott?
Aye.
Aye. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? No. President Dockstetter? No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Amendment number 11. 11 aye, 18 no, 1 excused.
Senate File, or third reading amendment number 11 to Senate File 1 has failed the Senate. Next amendment for our consideration, third reading amendment number 16 to Senate File 1.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 16, section 300.
Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move third reading amendment 16 to Senate File 1 and ask the body to vote aye. Mr. President, these are, you're going to go through, and this is not the only one you'll see. That's not all the remaining ones are this way, but these are just budget balancers. And Mr. President, by our Constitution, we have to have a balanced budget. It doesn't, and by that simply means we've got to have the funds, anticipated income or the of other funds available to pay the expenses. And so the way you do this is when you do these budget balancers is you set this up so that as we merge and work on the conference committee and merge what happens on both sides, you come back and so what we do is we take one body and we put a very low estimate of where we're going to meet, and the other body has a very high estimate of where we'll meet, so that when we get done and we have that, we'll take final action on a budget with a budget balancer so we can meet in the middle. What and how we do that is if you look, the easiest way to figure this out is if you look at line 13 on the amendment and you see that $113,185,000. That's called the statutory reserve account. And we like to have that to be 5% of total general fund expenditures. And so in the budget balance, what we do is we say, however much money it takes to get to a balanced budget, we do that by then making sure whatever, when we're done expending, we've got this $113,185 in the statutory reserve account. So this year, the Senate is the low number. So we said we were appropriating $1 million to statutory reserve account. At the other, there's another budget amendment that'll happen somewhere else at some point in time on the budget that will be just like this, but it'll probably have a number of somewhere $50-60 million, knowing that we're going to be somewhere in the middle. And so that's what this does. It's a matter of making sure that we have that balanced budget. And with that, some explanation, would ask you to vote aye. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
Discussion, further discussion? Question? Chief Clerk, read the roll call on, excuse me. Third reading amendment number 16 to Senate File 1.
Amendment number 16, roll call. Anderson.
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Whitman. Aye. Boner excused. Bouchard. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Murphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings. Aye. James. Aye. Kinsky. Aye. Cole. Aye. Cost. Aye. Landon. Aye. McCune. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstetter. Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Amendment number 16, 29 aye, 1 excused.
Third reading amendment number 16 to Senate File 1 has passed the Senate. Next amendment for our consideration. Third reading amendment number 19 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk, read in the amendment.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 19, section 308.
Senator Perkins. Oh,
Thank-
excuse me, are you standing? Okay, Senator Perkins.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move third reading amendment 19 to Senate File 1 and ask the body to vote aye. Members of the Senate, this correction was just brought to us by staff. It goes back and what it does is it went back, they found several, they went back and reviewed that. They found a number of technical corrections in the kind of global amendment we passed Wednesday. And so this just goes back and does the cleanup. It doesn't change any of our action. It just cleans it up. They found a few like I say, technical corrections that they thought needed to be amended and put into the bill. So with that explanation, Mr. Chairman, I ask for the body to vote yes or vote aye.
Further discussion? Call for the question. Question be called. Senate, third reading amendment number 19 to Senate File 1. Chief Clerk, take the roll.
Roll call on amendment number 19. Anderson.
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Whitman. Aye. Boner excused. Bouchard. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Murphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings. Aye. James. Aye. Kinsky. Aye. Cold. Aye. Cost. Aye. Landon. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstetter. Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Amendment number 19, 29 aye, 1 excused.
Third reading amendment number 19 to Senate File 1 is passed the Senate. Next amendment for our consideration. Third reading amendment number 12 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk, read the amendment.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 12, section 300s.
Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move third reading number 12 to Senate File number 1 and would ask for this body's favorable consideration. Senators, this is a technical cleanup. We discussed education task force / committee that would be put together. I unfortunately intermingled the two terms, and so this would just provide consistency. Would ask for your favorable consideration.
Question. This is a vocal vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The amendment has passed. That's Senate File, third reading amendment number 12, Senate File 1. We are now on Third reading amendment number 13 to Senate File 1.
Senate File 1, third reading amendments number 13, section 300s.
Senator Driscoll.
Mr. President, I move for third reading amendment number 13 to Senate File 1. Folks, this is one that we passed yesterday, and this is simply a technical correction to make it track incorrectly. No changes. If you defeat it, it just leaves a flawed amendment on the books. Pass this amendment, clean it up. Thank you.
Question?
It's adoption.
Question being called. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Senate File, third reading amendment number 13 to Senate File 1 is passed. Go ahead. Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Even though it's a technical correction, it is still a substantial appropriation, so we should do a roll call vote on it, in my opinion. At least that's my viewpoint.
Senator Perkins, weigh in on this.
Mr. Chairman, you know, you just need to, I think you need to decide. I mean, ultimately,
It's passed.
again, what happens, this doesn't appropriate any additional money. The money was already appropriated and voted on Wednesday. And so ultimately, there's some technical corrections here, but it does not change the amount, and the effect of voting aye or no on this vote doesn't change the budget as we voted it in here $1, so, or even a penny. So I think you need to make a ruling. It doesn't hurt to have a roll call if you're concerned at all, but I just want to make that clarification. Thank you, Mr.
Doesn't change the budget, so I'm not taking roll call. That's my ruling. All right, we're moving forward. One more time for the record. Amendment number, third reading amendment number 13 to Senate File 1 has passed the Senate. Third reading amendment number 17 to Senate File 1.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 17, corrected copy, 300 section.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move third reading amendment number 17 to Senate File 1, corrected copy. Ask for the body's favorable consideration. Mr. President, we discussed this on second reading, at least the principle behind it, but there was some concerns that were raised by the good chairman of the Appropriations Committee and some of the other appropriators with regard to oversight and some of the details and some interests, for example, in making sure that we have appropriate repayment of the funds, that we've got an appropriate authorizing entity. And so I took it back to the drawing board a little bit and tried to reflect those changes. So the concept is still the same as the concept that we discussed. As a reminder, Mr. President, that concept is the idea of effectively running the blockchain, setting up some staking nodes, having a few different cryptocurrencies that we're staking through the University of Wyoming. We have an incredible amount of infrastructure there that the state has invested in that provides us with an opportunity to be a functional and meaningful node on a variety of blockchains and do that with little or no additional resources expended by the university, which is a great asset for us. Well, being a part of the blockchain, Mr. President, is something that obviously I think is meaningful for us as a symbol of the work that we're doing. We're really trying to embrace this technology, but that's not enough by itself, Mr. President. At the same time, this is an opportunity for us to potentially develop revenue and support programs. So as a reminder, this is an opportunity for us to match some state funds to purchase cryptocurrency that would then be used to stake these nodes on a variety of blockchains. And running through the structure, there are some changes. The first part that we see in paragraph A is very similar to previous, where this comes out of the Legislative Stabilization Reserve account to be expended to operate cryptocurrency staking programs, not less than 3 of those that are publicly traded, provide public access to the staking pools, and operate and facilitate the operation of those blockchains. So these are all public blockchains, and there'd be a selection to try and determine which blockchains the university would be engaged in. This is new language which was asked for and clarifying on line 18, funds shall be expended only to purchase cryptocurrency for the staking nodes. Period. That's all the funds can be used for. Staked cryptocurrencies may be exchanged for other staked currencies, but shall not be dispersed without further appropriation. And this appropriation shall not be transferred or expended for any other purpose. In other words, cryptocurrency shall be purchased for the purpose of staking these blockchain nodes, but those funds can't be used for anything else. And that's an essential point here, and there was some desire for that clarity. Mr. President, the second desire was what we see in paragraph B, which is that we have a cryptocurrency advisory committee that will hopefully hastily be created, which includes the co-chairman of the select committee for blockchain, the Wyoming chief investment officer, 3 members appointed by the governor with relevant knowledge and expertise in cryptocurrencies, and 1 member of the university. And that will be a group that serves to oversee the operations and make sure sound choices are being made. And then you see on paragraph C that the university shall develop a plan for operation of the program established under A. That plan will be submitted to the Cryptocurrency Advisory Committee for approval. And then once that advisory committee has approved the plan moving forward, the governor will have to sign off that the plan seems like a good idea before any release of funds. Paragraph D just indicates that the university will be responsible for providing assistance. E is something we discussed before a little bit, but there's a tweak on it, which provides a repayment provision where the fees and revenues generated from the operation will first go towards any costs of operation and administration, and then 50% of any additional fees or revenues will be returned to an account in the LISRA. And the rest then will go to provide support for blockchain programs and activities at the university and community colleges throughout the state. Mr. President, as you know, the university is already forging relationships on blockchain with all of our colleges. And this is an important feature of this that I hope we really flesh out, trying to engage not just the university, but all of our colleges. These entities will report to the Select Committee on Blockchain. And then the G paragraph provides that there has to be at least a 1-to-1 match of private funds to public funds where reserve accounts can be used as well. On and for the amendment, I hope you'll support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, just want to refocus your attention on this amendment. It's far different than any other amendment you've seen in this budget bill. It is a revenue generator. Let me underscore that. It's a revenue generator. That's why this appropriation is there. I want you to pay close attention to subparagraph E that you just read through the amendment sponsor. How does the money that gets generated, where does that go? It goes to cover the cost of the operation of the program, to pay it back, and then 50% of that goes back into the LSRA. Goes back into fund the savings account. That's a really important feature here. All data indicates that this will be a solid and steady revenue generator. As we know, as we really want to reposition ourselves for economic diversification and how we have always led the charge and have pioneered our way on this space, right? We've all been so proud of that, and it's really worked out quite well for the state in a very positive direction. This is part of that piece. And so I know it's a big ask, it seems like, but the return on investment is very real. And that return on investment comes back into the state's coffers and then back into keeping the program in the black and keeping it operational. So it's self-sustaining. So those two pieces I think are really critical. This is to advance and move forward. Again, revenue generation. Revenue generation. Vote aye.
Mr. President,
Please go ahead, Senator Anderson.
Mr. President, this is a great use of our funds to bring in this cryptocurrency and all the things that the committee has done, and I vote a strong aye.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We're not calling for the vote just yet, though. But go ahead, Senator Ellis and then Senator Kinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of questions for the bringers of the amendment. One, we've been cautioned numerous times about legislating through the budget. And I understand those concerns, but this seems to the intent would maybe perhaps be of a longer life than a one-year budget bill. So I am curious why this is brought to us in this form and rather than as a standalone. The second piece of that is, I inquired and tried to get some answers about why we would entrust the University of Wyoming to do this work. And it's not that I have lack of confidence in the university, but when we talk about revenue generation and management of funds, that's usually done through other agencies. And so I am curious why there isn't some kind of nexus to the Department of Revenue or some other state entity when we're talking about kind of the administration of government. This seems a little bit outside the scope of what the university is supposed to be doing for us. They're supposed to be educating our children, our college students. They're supposed to be, providing research functions, but this starts looking like ministerial government act. And so that's a concern for me. If I could get some answers to those questions, I'd appreciate it.
Senator Kinsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Folks, we're going into business. We're going to use savings to do it. We're going into the crypto business. That's what this is. First, it's a bill. This should not be in a budget bill. With all the detail that's in here, it should be brought as a standalone bill. We're not supposed to legislate through the budget in this manner, and that alone is reason enough for a no vote. But next, we're going to take from our savings, buy cryptocurrency, give it to the university to get into the crypto business with nodes and pools. And it is a business. If you look at it, we're going to be operating, it says operate a program. It's not a program, it's a business. This is not like we're teaching English 101. We are operating a business. And we're going to take the profits, the hoped for profits under E, and we're going to split them, and hopefully we'll have some savings, and then we're going to use it to put it back into the university system and dedicate the revenue stream there. Of course, we don't know that we'll have a revenue stream. I always remember there was a great article by a venture capitalist, and he said, anytime you get these business propositions and they make it through those various filters and you have really bright ideas in front of these venture capital funding, and every one of them looks like a home run. And 9 out of 10 of them are a smoking hole in the ground. This is a speculative venture. So cryptocurrency, I voted for a lot of cryptocurrency bills because we heard that if we engage in this cryptocurrency legislation, somehow all this business is going to come to the state. I didn't necessarily understand cryptocurrency, still don't, but I don't want to be that one guy that's railing about the flivvers and how we need to bring the horse and buggy back. So on a leap of faith, I voted for that all this cryptocurrency legislation, hoping that nobody gets hurt by it, but trusting that private enterprise will come into the state and take advantage of our cryptocurrency laws. That is who should be operating this business, not the University of Wyoming, not the state of Wyoming. If this is a good business proposition, then a business will come forward and fund it and operate it and earn a profit. That's why we've been voting for this cryptocurrency legislation. But this is a venture into that the state of Wyoming should not engage in. Thank you. On and against the amendment.
Senator Perkins.
Thank you. On and for the amendment. And just to answer a few questions and give you some additional things to think about. First of all, I want to thank the bringer of the amendment. He came to me and we looked at this, and quite frankly, I asked him to go back and look about how we had done the other one that we did for coal on that, because there was a way to vet that. There was a way to have some independent people look at that and make the business case, and to figure out how to do that. And so that we could have some people who understand this and who know what it does to make the business case, so that that gets done before this ever gets proved, before the money's ever released. And which is exactly what we did in the carbon capture and sequestration project that we approved Wednesday. And so I'm encouraging you to vote aye for this for a couple of reasons. One is we have one project that kind of deals with our past and our present and continues to help our economy move in that direction. This one is something that looks to the future and helps to move our economy in that direction. Why would we do that? I would suggest to you that all you have to do is look one state to the east, borders on us, one state to the east. And years ago, they started down and they started to create favorable laws for banking and credit cards. And that state now has a robust, it's changed the economic fortunes of that state, has a robust industry where banking and credit cards are located in that state, and it's changed that state significantly in expanding and enhancing and diversifying the economy. We've been undertaking and working on blockchain technology for quite some time, and it's starting to make a difference. We approved legislation, I think 2 or 3 years ago, to start and have specialty banks, which are banks that come and they hold cryptocurrency and they can pledge it, and there's ways to securitize it and do all these different things in security banks. We've had 2 come to the state. I believe both of them have assets in excess of $1 billion. And just the fact that they have assets in $1 billion results in let's see, it's 2% of it's $1 billion, $200,000 a year to the state just in franchise fees every time they renew their annual report. When I do it, my business is really small. It's only $50 for me to renew my annual report. But because they have assets and it's based on the number of assets you have, those 2 banks alone, if they've got $1 billion, I think this nexus that, but roughly that little tax generates $200,000 a year, those 2 banks. It's starting, it's happening, it's having an effect. And so now you have this opportunity to do this. Why would you do it? And why would you do it at the university? Well, when I was a new legislator, gosh, we had this opportunity that came up right toward the end of the session. In fact, we suspended rules and brought it in, and we contributed $5 million towards the process, to contribute that process. And what was that to do? It was to bring a certain supercomputer to Wyoming to do that. That supercomputer and that $5 million, it was centered, and it had to do with the university because it has to do with scientific, and that's where so much of the scientific and the know-how is, and it continues to develop. But that's also where you're developing the expertise related to cryptocurrency. It's happening at the university. So that's one of the reasons why it's there. And so I look at this, and folks, it's happening. This cryptocurrency is not a flash in the pan. In fact, just recently we looked at, there was a cryptocurrency folks that I've met. They've come to Wyoming. We've talked to them. They're looking to figure out where they're going to go, and they just pulled back an initial public offering that was going to go out for, I think it was $10 billion. They pulled it back. Why did they pull it back? Because as they went out and started to gauge the interest, it was undervalued. It's probably going to come back out at $20 billion for initial public offering value. So what that means to us is this is going to happen, and it's going to happen with us or without us. We have spent hours and hours and thousands of dollars, and we've spent all kinds of hours in this. We've spent tons of effort to maintain, to bring this new technology here, to make this the home of it, and we are on the cutting edge. People are copying us. They're doing what we've done. Folks, this is an important step. This is a bet. Quite frankly, I think that's a little bit excessive. I think this is an investment in something that has a real future for Wyoming. And if we don't, someone else will, and they'll be the beneficiaries of it. I encourage you to vote aye on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, the supercomputer was mentioned was a research facility. That's something university understands, knows has been a great blessing to us. That was a very wise investment. Mr. President, this is different. This is a speculative venture in an area where speculation is clearly going on, where values are inflated by the speculation. Mr. President, I've got a question for the body. Anybody remember the name? I think it was Long-Term Capital, of an outfit that was put together by a noted university on the East Coast, one is a little lesser than the one I went to, but still one of our major ones. And it's put together by a bunch of professors. They were in a business that has flourished. The Dow's been making new highs right along. They were in that business. They were investing. They went bankrupt in the dot-com bubble, or I think it may have been one of the triggers of the dot-com bubble. If you're going to be successful in business, Mr. President, if you're going to be successful in business, as you well know, you've got to be able to execute successfully. Executing successfully a business operation, particularly one that's in as a speculative and volatile an area as this one is, requires a different set of skills than operating a successful university. Mr. President, I think we're heading for a $10 million loss with this amendment, on and against the amendment.
Let's go Driscoll, Cooper in that order. Senator Driscoll.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, interesting conversations we just heard. Here's the flat truth of it that's interesting. It's back to back. Because of blockchain and what the state's already done, we actually have $10 million we could lose because it's generated multiples of that already. It's on its way. It's here. They're located here. Some of these big ones are here. They'll have more. I'll make a prediction, and I think I get corrected, but probably in the next 5 years, there'll be more money invested in the speedy banks than there is on total deposits in the state of Wyoming. Let me repeat that. More deposits than there are in every bank in Wyoming today. It's here. It's real. If you think it's flash in the pan, you take a look at it. And this product we're talking about, the main one, is now traded on the New York Stock Exchange and is considered a currency. When you look at the bottom of the ticker, guess what's there? Crypto's there. It's not a maybe, iffy. It's there. It's happening. It's trading. And these bets we've made, I looked at my colleague from Natrona County talking about what happened in South Dakota. Folks, it is happening here. Some of the biggest cutting edge firms, these aren't dot-commers, are locating in Wyoming or putting offices here as we speak. This plays a key role in where we stay on the cutting edge, on the front of it. So I want all of you to look around the room, look at each other, and ask how many times you've heard, can you help me diversify our economy? We hear it every day. Can you help me diversify? Change it. We want something new. We want something different. And here we are, something new, something different. And what are we saying? We're scared. We're worried about we might lose some money on it. Folks, this is diversification. This is what it's about. Worried about who's investing it? Read the amendment. Chief Investment Officer in the state of Wyoming. That's the main guy that's helping us invest that money. Do you think the guy that invests $20 billion ours is going to put his reputation out and say, I'm going to place bad bets and do stupid things? Don't think so. I think this is a good deal. This is diversification. If you want to stay in the same old crack, let's go back and shove our extractive industries and see how that treats us. Folks, let's diversify. This is your first leg at it.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to read something a little abnormal here. I'm going to ask some questions about the amendment. I think it's a really good idea, but a lot of times those are really good ideas until they're not. So my questions are, why the university? Do we have a business plan? Do we have return on investment projections? And do we have a risk analysis? I think those are all fair questions if we're going to go out and start a new business. Thank you, sir.
Senator Hicks, and then Senator Ellis. Sorry about that.
Mr. President, I think there's been a lot of good points out here. I agree with my colleagues. We need to diversify our economy, and I think this might do it. I don't know. But I just have a lot of concerns with the process. I heard good chairman of judiciary get up and talk about it's a revenue generator, and another colleague of mine talk about it looks a lot like a bill, and revenue generating bills have to start in the House of Representatives. But that's not the important point, Mr. President. So here's the point. Here's the one thing that gives me a lot of pause, is if this is a business, and it's going to be a business, that's what I've heard. It's a business to generate revenue. We're making a $10 million loan that's going to be paid back. And I don't know anybody that does interest-free loans. And in fact, there's some capital cost associated with doing that. Maybe a minor amount of fee, but that's how a business really works. The other thing that I keep wondering, who at the University of Wyoming, are we going to hire more people to do this? You know, Mr. President, in a lot earlier life, I spent a short period of time over there as faculty, and they're not like you guys. They don't show up here at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning and go home at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And so who's going to take this on? Is it the faculty that's going to be running the bank over there? I just have some real concerns that, having spent a little time over there, I'm not so sure that they're going to do that. Are we going to change their job description and pay them more? Or are the students going to run? Are we going to hire investment bankers now to work for the University of Wyoming? I got a lot of questions. I think it's a really good idea. I really do. I just don't know right now with all of the questions. And so let's take that one step farther. If this was such a revenue generating opportunity for the university, and it's got in, if you go down to subsection G down there, says the university can use up to $10 million of their reserves. They have reserves. And they can go out and seek private investment. It says right in here, up to a 1-to-1 investment. If they use their reserves, went out and garnered private investment, guess where the returns go? 100% back to the University of Wyoming. If it is such a great deal and it's going to generate all this revenue, why wouldn't the university board of trustees, which we've never heard from about this bill, by the way, I haven't been contacted by any trustees, but if it was going to generate a lot of revenue, and that revenue, 50% is currently directed towards the University of Wyoming, why not direct 100% towards the University of Wyoming? They can use their reverse, stand up the program, the money comes in there. They're going to be completely self-funded, Mr. President. Within a short period of time, that $250 million block grant, we won't have to give to them, because this is going to make millions, and it may very well. And I hope that happens. I would hope that our university could drive $250 million a year by doing this. Why aren't they doing it themselves with their existing reserves to go out there and drive the capital to help fund the university? I have not heard from a trustee yet saying that they want to do this.
Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, I just want it to be known, I'm not so cynical about cryptocurrency. I think it's provided a lot of opportunity for people to invest their money and their wealth in other areas. So I just wanted that to be known. It really is the permanency of what we're trying to achieve here. I don't see an end date that, you know, they'll get this program stood up and then walk away. I think what we're going to see next year is, well, you've already invested 10 million into it. Now we've got to invest another 10 and another 10. And, you know, if we're going to stand up a program like this, it shouldn't be through a budget amendment. I wish this would have gone through the normal legislative process. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion? Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm 104. Had a tough day today. Lots of tough decisions, lots of angst, lots of hand wringing. Really, really tough choices on how to fund things and then talk about downtimes and trouble. Then here at the end, we have an opportunity. How does a state diversify? How does an economy turn around? How does a state turn around? Is there a silver bullet? Is there just money going to fall from the sky? No. If you read, if you're a Malcolm Gladwell fan like I am, you'll read it's just little slivers, it's little bits. One thing here, one thing there. We help a meat packing plant, or we help our agricultural industry diversify a little bit. We try to do other things. It's pieces and slivers. Well, here's another sliver. Here's another piece. Do I know a lot about it? No. Many more people, forgotten more about cryptocurrency than I know. But I do know this. It's something we've invested a lot in up to this point. It's something we need to continue to invest in. It has promise. It is a piece of our future. It's not the only piece, but it's an important piece. Why do I know that? Because we spent a lot of time working on it. We spent a lot of time getting out on the front edge of it. And this is another step along that way. I urge you to take this opportunity. It's an opportunity for all of us, and maybe start to solve some of the problems we have, start to answer some of these questions. And maybe in the future, by continuing to do this, we won't have the Hobson's choices we face today. On and forth. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Perkins.
Thank you for my second time. And just to go back and try and answer some of the questions that have been asked, and there's been some good questions asked. And just by way of introductory remarks, you know, we had this discussion in a different context just 2 days ago, and we were talking about coal, and we were talking about injection and capturing carbon dioxide streams. And that was an easier discussion because most of us at least have some understanding. We can understand coal because, you know, we can touch it, we can feel it, we can do all those things. It's easy to understand coal. But what we voted on isn't so sure. What we voted on was advancing the technology in carbon capture and recovery and trying to get to a point where it's economical so that so the coal will continue to be economical. That's also a risk because there's a few of those out there that have done that, but ultimately you have to drive down the cost of doing it for that to be feasible and for that to work. We think the technology is coming along. We've spent money to do that. We've got the ITC. We've got some other projects that are doing that. Other people are very interested in that and doing that, but we're in competition with them. But we voted on that $10 million, and it was much the same. We set up the sponsor of the amendment went back and copied many of the things that he could out of that, because ultimately it's not just here's the money, go do it, but here's the money. If you can prove the business case, you can come in and you can show how much it's going to cost, what's the ROI, you come in with that plan and you present it. And in the other one, we had an advisory board. There were two advisory boards, one at the university and another one at I think it was the Infrastructure Authority or somewhere else. I can't remember that bill, that one right now, but we set that up so that we had somebody who knows something about it, make sure that business case was there. So we have an ROI. So we have somebody, it's not just pie in the sky. We have responsible people who are independent, don't have a stake in the matter, will look at that and help us make the right business decision. What have we got in this bill? Well, excuse me. Well, and you know, I guess we can call it a bill. That's a misnomer, but you know, we've done that a couple times. We already did this for coal. I got up and said we should avoid that, but we did it for coal. By golly, we put one in for, I guess we're going to do now the alternative recalibration committee. We put that bill in the other day to do that, where we set up a board and we said who's going to be appointed. We did all that in the bill. So I think the ship about legislating through the budget's kind of sailed. But if we look at the bill, the first thing, if you go to B on page 1, line 24, we're going to set up a crypto advisory committee hereby created shall be comprised of the co-chairman of the select committee on blockchain, financial technology and digital information shall co-chair the cryptocurrency advisory committee. That's important because that person's been on this ship all along and he knows more about cryptocurrency than anybody in this body and will represent us well and has represented us well. The chief investment officer of the state of Wyoming or his designee, and then the governor will go find 3 members that know what the heck is going on with cryptocurrency and appoint them to the board. And also we serve as and there'll be some liaisoning there. And then also 1 member appointed by the president of the University of Wyoming, because they're going to be our partners in this. What are they going to do once that's done? Well, if you go to C, which is on line 7 of page 2, they're going to develop a plan. They're going to develop a business plan for operation of the program established by subsection of the section. And the plan shall be submitted to the Crypto Advisory Committee for approval. And once approved, which doesn't mean it has to be approved, but it will, If they prove their case, they prove their plan of operation, they show their ROI, they show how this works, then it can be approved by that committee. Is that the end of it? No. Then it goes to the governor, who then has to finally approve it as well. I've known this governor since he became the treasurer. I've worked closely with him. I can tell you he's a cautious man, particularly with the state's investments. If he's not convinced the ROI is there, that the opportunity is not there, the business case isn't there, he's never been above saying no. That's my experience with this governor. So there's a business plan that will be developed and proved before this is released and done. And quite frankly, that's the end of my time, but that's also the last I had to say on this subject. So thank you.
Senator Whitman, go ahead.
Thanks. Real quick, Mr. President. I guess since the Appropriations Committee isn't going to defend their budget right now, I will for them. 10 million out of the LISRA. 10 million. A couple minutes ago, we couldn't take any money out of the LISRA. 1.6 million for home health care for seniors. Can't do that. But we'll take it out, 10 million out for a business opportunity, for somebody's pet project in crypto. Get it together, guys. Are we schizophrenic or what? What are we doing here? Vote no. Thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, for my second time, and I'll make it brief. And I don't think it's a fair discussion to compare the difference between what we talked about yesterday with coal, where we invest in the technology and then we turn that technology over to the private sector. The private sector, the people that actually know how to run businesses, make money to do that. This doesn't do that. We just put money in there, we put it in there, and then the university is going to become the business people, is the way I understand it. And I hope I can get some clarification. I still want to know who's actually going to run this. Now, I agree, the chairman of appropriations, there's going to be a well-vetted plan. I agree with that. I think that's a good component. It's going to be looked at. It's going to have to go through the committee, all that stuff. But then we're turning the operation over to who at the university? And maybe we can get some discussion on what that is. But the comparison between saying we're going to develop the technology and hand it off, and we're going to develop a program and then run it is a big difference as to what we're doing between the two bills. Oh, they are, well, no, I guess they weren't bills, amendments.
Senator Landon.
Mr. President, I wasn't going to get up, but now I am. You know, I've given a lot of thought to this budget over the last 2 weeks and what we've been up to. And so far, here's what's been going on in Wyoming. We're not going to build anything. We're actually not going to build anything at all. And so all of those workers in HVAC, and our electricians and our plumbers, and even our general contractors are probably going to have to go elsewhere to get work. We're not going to fix the roads. And those contractors too are probably going to have to go somewhere else. We're going to draw back the education budgets. And we've heard from the senator from Campbell County how many that probably is going to mean of folks that aren't going to have jobs and they're going to be leaving. You know what, folks? And regarding the Board of Trustees, if they jumped into a venture like this without involving our Appropriations Committee, you would have heard the explosion way back where your district is. This is a public-private partnership opportunity, folks, that's going to make some money for the state. After all of what we've had to face these last 2 weeks, this one actually has a chance. You guys, this is worth our investment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Driscoll.
Mr. President, I'll do this reasonably brief. I ask you to go to page 2 and look at section G. And it tells us something that's very telling about this. Expenditure of funds appropriated in this footnote and operation of this program created by this footnote goes on, dollar for dollar match outside. So this isn't $10 million. This is $20 million. What's that? Going to bring in another $10 million outside investment to start this. And my guess is that 10 million, if this is as good as it looks like, and I think it is,
you're going to see another 10 million bucks come into Wyoming, folks. It'll come right away and it could multiply in a hurry. It really is an investment in the state. By the way, these guys have paid off. Go to the Secretary of State's office. We're getting millions of dollars filings a year. We got the speedy maxed. It has paid off. Let's not take something that we got momentum on and stop it. Let's keep building the program, making it better. This is an investment in Wyoming, and it's a good one.
Further discussion? Let's go back to the sponsor. I think he's been taking notes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the robust debate, the interest in this, and I think that is indicative really of the interest of blockchain technologies in the state of Wyoming. And really many good concerns raised. I wanted to address a few of them. But I want to provide another concept that helps to clarify the questions about YUW and how this can be carried out. It's not sufficient to think of this as a business and revenue opportunity. It's important to think of this also as infrastructure and research opportunity. This is not just a startup that we're trying to put underneath the University of Wyoming. It has the possibility of substantial revenue and allows it to be self-sustaining. We don't have a lot of those opportunities, so it would be a shame to waste that incredible opportunity, particularly at a time when the university is going to be struggling with the same budget cuts that the rest of our agencies do. One of the internal priorities at the University of Wyoming is, all right, how can we generate our own revenue? How can we use some of our research and some of the programs we have to bring revenue from some location other than this legislature? How can we entice contributions? How can we entice interest? How can we generate our own revenue? And that is where this type of idea comes from. But I think the good senator from the center part of the state had three solid questions, which kind of get at the heart of this. One is YUW specifically. It does get to the infrastructure concept and the fact that we're investing at the University of Wyoming in this, but we don't really even have the infrastructure, right? We're doing research on blockchains. We have a Center for Excellence on Blockchain Technologies at the university that was recently spun up. We have a minor in blockchain that you can get in a variety of majors. The center incorporates folks from the Ag College, the Business College, engineering, arts and sciences, brings them all together to try and forward these technologies and do research in these technologies. And yet we're not even a node on the blockchain, right? It's kind of like studying water, but not having any water pipes hooked to you. But the intriguing thing about staked blockchains is you can make revenue off of the staking. So when we put a project like this forward, and it is a project, it's a project that happens to have an ROI, which is unlike most of our projects. I wish the project that I supported 2 days ago that was on carbon capture also had an ROI that would allow it to pay back $10 million to the LISRA in a few years while doing the research. That would have been even better, but I still supported it because obviously that's in the best interest of the state of Wyoming to be doing research in that space. I almost feel like this would have been an easier amendment if I hadn't mentioned that it generated revenue, because now I need a business plan for it. Now I need somebody who's going to take care of it. But the reality is that's an asset, not a liability, folks. This is an incredible opportunity, and it allows us to do something that, to my knowledge, I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, no other university has actually publicly engaged in staking blockchains, which means having blockchain nodes, waving a flag that said, we're the blockchain university, we've got a miner, we've got a center for excellence. We take this seriously. This is the future. We've changed our entire statutory framework to bring businesses to the state of Wyoming, and we're going to do research at the University of Wyoming that allows us to partner with those new innovative technology organizations that relocate in Wyoming, and they've asked for that. How do we know they've asked for that? Mr. President, you know as well as I do. We've already had $1 million of investment last year from blockchain companies that matched the last time we did this. We had no ROI on that except for the research and development. This is an attempt at a model that provides us with ROI. It's innovative. It's the first of its kind. That's the stamp of what we're doing on that blockchain task force, first of its kind. And I realize there are concerns. I share the concerns, but we're assembling a good team for oversight. We understand the governor is conservative, and we'll take a good look at this. And I hope you'll put your confidence in the work of the Blockchain Select Committee, the accomplishments we've made so far, and provide us with the opportunity to extend those through this amendment, Mr. President. Call for the question, ayes and noes.
Question haven't been called. Ayes and nays. This is on third reading amendment number 17 to Senate File 1.
Roll call on amendment number 17. Anderson,
Anderson, are you there?
Aye.
Anderson, aye. Baldwin? Aye. Whitman? No. Boner excused. Bouchard? No. Cooper? Aye. Case? No. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? No. French? No. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. James? No. Kinsky? No. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McCowen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss?
Aye.
Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? No. President Dockstetter? No. Closing vote. Closing vote close. Third reading amendment number 17, 14 aye, 15 no, 1 excused.
Third reading amendment number 17 to Senate File 1 has failed to pass the Senate. Final amendment. Third reading amendment number 18 to Senate File 1. Reading clerk, reading the amendment.
Senate File 1, third reading amendment number 18, section 300s.
Senator Perkins.
This is the last amendment, isn't it, Mr. President?
That's what I show right here.
The last one. Thank you, Mr. President. We've had this discussion a couple of times. What this is another budget balancer, and in the particular budget balance we have, it's for the CARES Act funding. We have CARES Act funding. I'm going to call it CARES 1. That's the one that came last year, and we had the special session on CARES funding. And I'm going to call it CARES Act 2 is the one that we've got that has just been passed out. And so as we talk about that, that's how I'm going to refer to this as CARES 1 and CARES 2. So what we've got as we've gone out, there's about $20 million of unexpended, of unencumbered and unexpended money left of the CARES Act. There's about $20 million. And we have a number of different pieces of legislation out there trying to appropriate and deal with that. And you'll find if you go down and start on page, page 1, line 23, you see we've tried to go and capture all the bills that are still alive in the Senate that are trying to either one, appropriate remaining and unexpended CARES Act 1 money, or in many instances, they also have provisions in the appropriations that reach out and try to appropriate from any additional CARES Act money, CARES Act 2 money, when it hits the state. And so there's a couple of issues that we have there. One is we're over appropriating from the remaining CARES Act 1 money. And 2 is, as this money hits, there may be restrictions and strings. We're going to do it. It's very anticipated. We're going to do a special session to come back and deal with those. And so what this is trying to find a way to balance all the demands on those CARES Act money. And that's what this does. The way it does that is if you go to Romanet 1 on the appropriation SF-15, that's one that comes in and tries to deal with these CARES Act money and try to help finish up a lot of the programs that were started under the original CARES Act 1 legislation we did during special session. There's some of those programs that ran out of time because original CARES Act 1 required that it be done by April 30, but the continuing budget resolution that happened extended those deadlines to December 30 of this year. So it allows and allow some of that stuff to continue on and get done that was done before. So that's what you find in 1 and 2 is trying to deal with those issues. Then you come to Romanet 3, I think is the, Romanet 3 is the, Romanet 3 is there's is a bill that's going on. It has to do with large company mineral relief, COVID relief there. The next one, Romanet 4, has to do with Senate File 50, which is, I think that's the one that it has the millions we did in the virtual session that has an appropriation of COVID-1 and COVID-2 monies. You have HB 197 that you see on Romanet 4, or excuse me, Romanet 5, and I think that has to do with broadband. That one's out there. Then I think there's another one that has to, Senate File 58 also has to do with, can't remember, that one has to do with nursing. And so all of them are trying to appropriate that. And this is a budget balancer that helps us figure out how we do that and sets that into order. And so what happens is, and what this does is it creates a priority in this one that's going to come before the Senate probably next week, is Senate File 118, that one goes first. If that doesn't appropriate at all, then it'll start to go in prorated on the others that we've got there. It also says that all the CARES Act 2 money, as that comes, that what we're going to do is when we come back and we do this, the legislature is going to come back out, the JAC will come back without recommendations of the appropriations for the bills that pass this session. And we'll have that, the JAC will then bring that back to our bodies, and our bodies will vote on how we allocate that money. So it's going to be kind of like a little mini budget bill about how we appropriate this money out to all these different demands that are being made out at this session that we don't know how that's going to turn out. And so that's what this balancer, that budget balancer does. It says we're going to come back and we're going to decide this collaboratively. Some of it will be decided as we move along this session, but ultimately this is the way that we'll be able to balance the demands that we have on the COVID, both the COVID CARES 1 and the COVID, the CARES Act 2 money. And hopefully I'll stand for questions, but that's what this does, and hope that you'll support us in it. Thank you.
Questions, discussion on the amendment? Questions or discussion? Call for the question. On third reading amendment number 18 to Senate File 1, roll call by Chief Clerk.
Roll call, third reading amendment 18, Anderson.
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Whitman. Aye. Boner excused. Bouchard. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Murphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings. Aye. James. Aye. Kinsky. Aye. Cole. Aye. Cost. Aye. Landon. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Perkins. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstader. Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Amendment, third reading amendment 18, 29 aye, 1 excused.
Back on the bill. Are you ready for the question? Senator Scott.
Mr. President, just briefly, I rise to explain why I'm going to vote no on this bill. I'm not going to ask the rest of you to necessarily follow me on this. But this bill leaves us with a budget that really hits the services to some of our least advantaged, most needing persons. Significantly damaged. In the mental health area, the development and disabilities area, in the nursing home area where we're trying to keep people out of the nursing home, a number of the others in that health and welfare area, a number of the other programs, including some of our higher education. It does not touch the largest program in the state. And there's a great big disparity there where I think we're spending money we do not need to in the one area and hitting the other areas too hard. I do not think that is a responsible budget. Now, this theoretically, Mr. President, it's third reading and final passage. We know with the budget that there's going to be a conference committee. There'll be a lot of process further. We know there's other bills out there. May well solve the problem. I hope they will. I'm not at all confident in that. So I'm not asking anybody else to necessarily follow me. But I wanted to explain that I was going to vote no, and that's why.
Thank you, Senator. Further discussion before we call for the question? Further discussion. Question being called. Senate File 1 having been read 3 separate times. The question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Roll call on Senate File 1. Anderson?
No.
No. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? No. Boner excused. Bouchard? No. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? No. French? No. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. James? No. Kinsky? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader? Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 1, 18 aye, 11 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 1, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, Senate File 1 has passed the Senate. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, do you have any direction for us before we continue on?
Open committee of the whole.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Oh, but
We're keeping working the kids.
wait a minute, we want to do a couple of reports here. Messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, March 12, 2021. Mr. President, the following bills passed the House in an amended form. Message number 196, House Bill 14, Rights of Way Along Public Ways Amendments, ayes 38, noes 22. Message number 198, March 12, 2021. House Bill number 179, Optional Municipal Tax Election, ayes 32, noes 28. Signed Wendy Harding, House Chief Clerk. March 12, 2021, message number 197. Mr. President, the following bill failed to pass the House of reading by the vote indicated. House Bill number 160, Election Ballot Order, ayes 17, noes 43. Signed Wendy Harding, House Chief Clerk.
Standing committee reports.
March 12, 2021. Mr. President, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 137, Firearms Preemption Amendments and Applicability, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Cooper, French, Kolb, and Nethercott. No, Senator Cost. Senator Nethercott, Chairman. March 12, 2021, Mr. President, your committee number 4, Education, to whom is referred Senate File 138, School Board Trustees Party Affiliation, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Beitman, Ellis, Salazar, and Scott. No, Senator Rothfuss. Senator Scott, Chairman. March 12, 2021, Mr. President, committee number 4, Education, to whom was referred Senate Joint Resolution 4, School Capital Construction Constitutional Amendment, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Beitman, Ellis, Salazar, and Scott. No, Senator Rothfuss. Senator Scott, Chairman. March 11, 2021. Mr. President, to Committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom was referred House Bill 118 engrossed. Food Freedom Act amendments. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Bouchard, French, Costa, and Wasserberger. Senator Boner, Chairman. March 11, 2021, Mr. President, to Committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom was referred House Bill 52 engrossed, Wyoming School Protein Enhancement Project. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Boner, Bouchard, French, Costa, and Wasserberger. Senator Boner, Chairman. March 11, 2021, Mr. President, to Committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom was referred House Bill 54 engrossed, Wyoming Meatpacking Initiative. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Boner, French, Costa, and Wasserberger. No, Senator Bouchard. Senator Boner, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, give us some direction here. Mr. Floor Leader, what's your desire?
Mr. President, I move the Senate resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, no. Well, that was close, but Senator Nethercott, take us through a few bills here.
Well, good afternoon, good senators. I'm trying to get my mouse to work here. Thank you. Good senators, before we resolve ourselves back into committee of the whole, I just want to remind you to look on your desks. There should be a bottle of hand sanitizer. Go ahead and use some of that now. Just as a reminder before we leave, the pandemic is still underway.
Workers' mouthwash as well.
All right. Again, it's that kind of day. The committee of the whole will please come to order. The first bill for our consideration is Senate File 113. The reading clerk will read the Senate file.
Senate File 113, Business Ready Communities Amendments, sponsored by Senator Wasserberger, an act relating to the Wyoming Business Ready Community Program. It was referred to Committee number 9, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Cooper, Rothfuss, and Wasserberger. No, Senator Beitman. Senator Anderson, Chairman.
I see you, Senator Wasserberger, and I will call call on you. Unfortunately, the mouse is not working to turn on your mic.
Now use your fingers.
Use my finger on the screen. Wonderful, thank you. Senator Wasserberger.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, do so with a favorable recommendation that Senate File 113 Business Ready Communities amendments do pass. And I would turn it over to the floor manager, who is myself. And there is a standing committee amendment, which I would like to have read in at this time, and I will introduce it for the good senator from Albany County, who's not on the floor at this time.
All right, Senator Wasserberger, can we have that standing committee amendment read in? There's not one. It's a committee of the whole amendment, Senator. All right, can we have the committee of the whole amendment read in?
Senate File 113, Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, page 1, line 8 after.
Madam Chair, I would move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 113 and ask for your favorable support. As you can see, this is an amendment that actually I agree to. I believe it's a friendly amendment. It states that no grants shall be made under this article without the written opinion of the Attorney General certifying the legality of the transaction and all documents connected therewith. So essentially what we do is in this, if you look, well, let's stay with the amendment. So essentially what we're going to have is the Attorney General's office to make sure that we're not violating section 16(6), section 6 of the Constitution. So the Attorney General would review all of those and make sure that they are constitutionally correct. If there are no questions, I call the question.
Question having been called, all those in favor of Senator Wasserberger's amendment, please say aye. Any opposed? That motion has passed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are on the bill. And essentially what the bill does is on page 2, and it is a small bill, but it has huge ramifications. Essentially what we are doing is saying that business-ready communities, money could be used for projects or uses determined by the council to be consistent with the purposes of this article. And before it said infrastructure, and now it says projects or uses. And so it's a significant expansion, okay? So that you know that even though it's just 2 words, it's a big deal. And the reason why we're doing that is because our needs have changed. And when Business Ready Communities was first made, there was a demand for business parks and infrastructure. And while that still may be true for some communities, it's not true for all. The economy is ever changing. The Wyoming needs to adjust our economic development programs in order to stay competitive with other states. And so we need to make this change so it fits with all of our communities and helps all of those. What this bill does is provide some more flexibility, as I said before, that is still consistent with the article for the Business Ready Community Program, but will help Wyoming diversify and leverage the dollars we put forward to economic development in our state. This bill does not change, and with the amendment makes it even better, any of the review or application processes. All projects will go through the Attorney General's office for constitutionality, and then to the Business Council Board of Directors, and then finally to the State Loan and Investment Board for final approval. With the current fiscal woes the state is facing, we need to make sure that we are leveraging every dollar as best we can, and that the need to diversify the economy has never been greater. This amendment is one step in both of those directions. Business Ready Communities is a vital economic development tool for our communities all across the state. This amendment ensures that all of our communities have the opportunity to develop and build resilience. And so, Madam Chair, that is essentially the bill, and I stand for questions.
Discussion on the bill. Senator Ellis.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I was off the floor for a brief moment talking about Committee of the Whole. The Committee of the Whole amendment, I do have some concerns about the written opinion. Certainly, looking at the resources of our Attorney General's office, I'll visit with the bringer of the amendment, but requiring a written opinion just sounds like something that might take some time. And I do have some concerns about that, delaying some of these projects from moving forward, perhaps in a timely manner.
Senator Ellis, the amendment has passed.
Yep, I apologize, Madam Chair. And so the bigger question, though, back on the bill is projects or uses. If we could get an explanation, perhaps with some examples of what kind of projects and uses are contemplated, I think that would be helpful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further discussion on the bill? All right, seeing none, does the sponsor want to answer those questions? Senator Wasserberger.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. And that, if we do have issues with the amendment, we can come back and rather than require a written opinion, we could look for an informal letter, which has been done in the past. So we already have their review prior to that, and so we can fix that if there are concerns. Other things that it would be used for would be those things that are constitutionally acceptable to the Attorney General's office. And so I think it's much broader than what we've ever had before, but it also allows us to expand our economic diversification to other areas within the local community that have already managed to build up their infrastructure and prepare it for economic diversification. So on and in favor, I ask for your favorable vote.
Any further discussion? All right, sensing that you're ready for the question. All those in favor of Senator Wasserberger's motion to adopt Senate File 113, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion, that bill has passed. Senators, we're on Senate File 147.
Senate File 147, Management Council Authority on Legislative Committees, sponsored by Senator Hicks, an act relating to the legislature, was referred to Committee number 12, which turned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Dockstader, Driscoll, Guru, Hicks, and Rothfuss. Senator Dockstader, Chairman.
Senator Hicks.
Madam Chairman, I move Senate File 147. There is a Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1. Could I have that read in at this time?
Senate File 147, Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, page 5, line 14, delete.
Madam Chairman, I would ask for your favorable consideration on the Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1. This is a technical correction that LSO found, and ask you to vote aye, and then I'll discuss the bill.
Discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of Senator Hicks' motion to adopt Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 147, say aye. All those opposed? That motion has passed. Back on the bill.
Madam Chairman, back on the bill. This is a bill that we bring to you from the Management Council that passed out of your Rules Committee with the unanimous vote. The intent of this, or the effect of this, not the intent. The effect is it will restore some of the autonomy of your joint interim committees. If you go over to page 2, what it does is says those joint interim committees will prioritize their list of study topics. You move on down the list, it goes down there towards the bottom of page 2. And it says Management Council shall only limit the number and scope of the interim topics to be studied by an interim committee based on the availability of funding and staffing. Removal of any topic under these constraints shall start with those topics assigned the lowest priority of the interim committee and move sequentially up the list. So the practical application is our standing committee meets with the standing committee on the other side. Those committees establish their priorities. They bring those to Management Council. Management Council, then the only thing they can do is say, look, we don't think we have the budget or the staffing to do everything you've asked for. So we're going to remove something, but we have to remove it from the bottom of the priority list. So it leaves those interim committees to establish those priorities that they're going to study instead of Management Council. Madam Chairman, if we go on down on the joint interim committee may request along these same line, that joint committee can come back and request additional days or additional funding if they feel so compelled to go ahead and take these on. That's not unusual. That's happened in the past, but it wasn't in statute. And so it codifies that the council can go ahead and grant those. And then in addition, it comes in, and this is where it puts some restrictions on Management Council that don't currently exist. It says Management Council can assign additional topics to the joint committee. They will not supplant the priorities. Number 2, reassign topics selected by a joint interim committee to another joint interim committee or a select committee pursuant to the subsections. It's not unusual that you have 2 different standing committees or 2 different interim committees have a similar topic. This would just allow Management Council to assign that to one or the other committee. We go over to Romanet 3, would be to combine 1 or more topics to be studied by an interim committee. And then, Madam Chairman, if we get over to page 4, line 10, it says the following shall apply to any select committee. This is a select committee that Management Council themselves forms. It says the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House will assign those committee members. The only thing that Management Council has as far as representation there is to just the number of committee members. Number 2, a select committee appointed under this subsection shall only operate during their interim for which it was appointed, and only the continuation The only way to continue that committee is through passage of a standalone bill. So you don't have these perpetually created select committees by management council. They can operate in the interim. If it needs to continue, they have to come back and get legislative approval to continue that committee, Madam Chairman. If we go over to Romanet 3, Management Council shall not establish any select committee to study a topic in the interim that deals with the same or a materially list. Well, you guys can read it. I can't pronounce that word right now. Anyway, they can't do a select committee on something that an interim committee is already doing. And then we get down to Romanet 4. If a bill is drafted at the request of a select committee that addresses the subject that is within the purview of the materially similar subject studied by the joint interim committee, the bill shall be referred. So if this select committee comes up and they want a bill draft, it has to go back through the joint interim committee to be sponsored. Again, we're trying to put power back into those committees. Madam Chairman, the rest just goes down there and kind of clean up language in there as far as upon request of a joint interim committee, any vacancy or enlargement, they could come and say, we need more people. We don't have the expertise on our committee. Management Council may consider that. Madam Chairman, that's the bill. Stand for any questions.
Discussion on the bill. Look alive, senators. Discussion on the bill?
Question.
Seeing none. All those in favor of Senator Hicks' motion to adopt Senate File 147, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Senate File 147 has passed Committee of the Whole. Senators, we're on Senate File 146. The little bill.
Senate File 146, six-person juries in civil cases, sponsored by Senator Nethercott, an act relating to civil procedure. Was referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Cooper, Cole, Cost, and Nethercott. No Senator French. Senator Nethercott, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure, Chairman Nethercott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the due pass recommendation of Senate File 146, six-person juries in civil cases. And I call on myself to explain this bill. Good senators, what the bill does is it adopts really the general practice associated in the federal courts that in civil cases and civil cases only, that the size of the jury pool is, or the size of the jury is only 6. This has a significant implications for the court system, primarily as it results in the cost to the administration of justice in polling a jury. The clerks have to poll a large number of the public to come in for jury selection, particularly when there's 12 jurors. This reduces that extensively. Experiencing some of those challenges in some of our smaller communities where there's less population and people routinely get called back multiple times a year for jury duty. So with that, I stand for questions and ask for your favorable consideration.
Are there any questions? Any questions on the bill? Sensing you're ready for the question and ready to go home, all those in favor of Senator Nethercott's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rise and report, they do so with a favorable recommendation on Senate File 146, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 146 has passed the Committee of the Whole. What's that? Mr. Majority Floor Leader, that clears the deck.
Chairman, I move Committee of Whole rise report.
Is Mr. President, what's that? All those in, you've heard the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion has passed.
Where are we?
Mr. President, I move for adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
Okay, wait, let's have him read the committee. Will the reading clerk read the committee of the whole
I'm just
report?
orienting us.
Mr.
toward
President,
this
your committee of the whole, having had under considerations bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 113, do pass amended. Senate File 147, do pass amended. Senate File 146, do pass. Senators Nethercott and Steinmetz, Chairman.
Senator Nethercott, now call for that motion.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of the committee of the whole report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Committee of whole report adopted. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, that clears the desk.
Mr. President,
Stand adjourned until
Oh,
Monday.
whoa, before you do that, we have to have Senator Anderson for just a moment. Senator Anderson?
Mr. President, you assigned a bill, House Bill 7 to the Minerals Committee. I would ask that be reassigned. House Bill 7, air ambulance to corporations, please.
Good move.
Thank, absent your objection, absent objection, that has been approved. Now, thank you, Senator Anderson. Senator Driscoll, thank you, Senator Anderson.
Mr. President, I move that we stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Monday, March 15th.
Announce-
Thank you, everybody, for the good work.
Announcements? Any announcements? Go ahead, Senator Scott.
Mr. President, your committee number 4, education, will meet, weather permitting, at 8:30 a.m. Monday in room W10 downstairs, Senate File 127, Wyoming Learn While You Earn program. That's the only bill we'll take up, and committee members note the 8:30 time as opposed to the normal.
Keep it in the neighborhood, Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources will meet Tuesday, March 16th at 8 a.m. in the Capitol Extension, room W2, and online. To start hearing some House bills, we'll hear House Bill 58 engrossed State Parks Account Expenditure Authority and House Bill 86 engrossed off-road recreational vehicles registration authorized.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee, Tired 10, will meet on Monday morning at 8 a.m. to hear House Bill 38, Community Behavioral Health Priority Populations will meet in room 6 in the hallway.
Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Transportation Committee will meet Monday upon adjournment, Capitol Extension Room W2, and we will take up House Bill 20 engrossed driver's license requirements, visual acuity, and House Bill 135 engrossed Hank Co. Leadership Highway Designation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I make my announcement, I have a brief privilege of the floor.
Please do.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody for their debate and their work on the budget bill. Some of us lost. We all lost a few. We all won a few. That's how it works. We come back. We're happy warriors for Wyoming. So again, thank you for that. And we'll continue on that work. In that vein, Mr. Chairman, your committee number 2 will meet upon 15 minutes afternoon recess on Monday, March 15th in Senate Capitol Room W113, which is downstairs on the main floor and online. And what we'll be doing is hearing any bills that are introduced and re-referred to the extent we can. And we'll also be reviewing House Bill 1 to see what our brethren and sisters at the other end of the building did today. They're still going. I was just down there. They're still going strong. So they'll be there a while, but we'll see. We'll get a recap of what they did in our meeting. And thank you, Mr. President.
Very good. They'll be caught in the storm. Any other further announcements? Further announcements?
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator Anderson, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. President, your favorite committee, Minerals, will meet Monday, March 15th, 15 minutes afternoon recess, weather permitting. And Capitol Extension Room W4, we'll hear bills, Senate File 141, business entities representation in detainer cases. We'll hear HB 10, COVID-19 large business relief, HB 67, geothermal and hydro related energy review. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The Senate will stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Monday, March 15th. Travel safely, everyone.